Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined by Bryan Younger, CIO at Liberty Dental Plan of Oklahoma. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Matt. I appreciate you having me on.
We appreciate you coming on. Before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. Hackers are getting smarter. Is your security keeping up? CyberLink sells industry-leading AI-powered cybersecurity solutions that detect threats in real time, so you know about an attack before the damage is done, not after. Learn more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyber, LYNX.com. And now back to our show. Bryan, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about Liberty Dental Plan of Oklahoma and your role there as CIO?
Absolutely. So Liberty Dental Plan is a dental benefits administrator. So insurance. We work a lot in the Medicare and Medicaid space, and also commercial and exchange. Liberty serves around 8 million members nationwide. We're the largest privately held dental benefits administrator in the country. So we have a lot of people out there in a lot of different places, and we're very excited to continue to serve those people.
That's fantastic. It strikes me that when it comes to, kind of the CIO role, even the insurance side of things, I think service management is a really big and important, aspect of that,
Mhm.
and I kind of want to dive in and kind of get your perspective on it. What is your take and take on the whole lot of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't say it better, Matthew. As far as service management in not just the insurance space, but all corporate spaces these days, service management drives efficiency. It drives automation. It provides clear direction. It helps keep us accountable, and it's a very, very necessary part of IT these days. And it originally came from Europe, from the UK, via ITIL. So the ITIL certifications, if most people that are in IT have heard that one before, the UK government came up with it, and it's now the most widely accepted framework in IT on the globe. So I really enjoy being part of that here at Liberty, and I enjoy driving those automations. I think one of the places where that really is seen most is in change management. A lot of people have heard of change management, may not understand that that's part of service management.
Yeah.
But we manage changes by having a change advisory board and having a change process and a workflow, and it gives us the opportunity to see those changes before they go into production. And that really helps limit downtime. And downtime's really, really important. And it also helps your MTTR, your mean time to resolution, when you can go look at your changes that happened the day before, and it gives you a good place to start. So it plays a huge role.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a really good point. I think for a lot of people, especially on the IT side, where they'll hear change management is like, oh, you're just slowing me down. It's cumbersome, it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I think you maybe see a little bit of that even on, the development side of things, where it's like,
Oh,
ah,
sure.
I could just knock this out and do it. Then it seems kind of cumbersome. But I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there that the advantage of being able to go back and see where the problem was, see what the changes were, and the benefits in troubleshooting from there, I think far outweigh the benefits of hurrying up and rushing and getting it done. Because yeah, that's always fun, but it's not like this is your home pet project that you're just working on. There's a lot at stake here.
Yeah, I agree. And in the service management space, we look to be a partner, not a hindrance.
Yeah.
We understand that it is asking a little extra work from time to time. But there's many statistics out there that will say 80% of all outages are a result of a bad change.
Yeah.
So if you can stop 10 of those a year, and if a company makes $1 million or loses $1 million for every hour that they're down, you just saved them $10 million.
I mean, I think that we've got a stellar example with CrowdStrike. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that couldn't be a better example of how, good QA and change management is of paramount importance. It's kind of funny to me in a way that it wasn't more detrimental to the company, right? You would think that something like that would be a death blow, like, well, we're not going to recover from this. And it was just a kind of like a bad news cycle,
Yeah.
lasted kind of 24 hours, whatever. It really lasted maybe a month. But after that, people forget and they move on. I thought that was fascinating because I really expected it to hit CrowdStrike a lot harder than it did.
Well, I'll say this. It's forgotten and moved on from people outside of CrowdStrike. But I would bet you my house that there are people on the C-suite at CrowdStrike that have not forgotten.
For sure.
And the people that it really affects is your NOP. Your net operating profit is hit hard.
Yeah.
That's where it hurts.
Yeah.
And that shows up to the stakeholders, that shows up to shareholders, and that shows up to executive leadership.
Well, I think it's also telling of just how much people, especially the CIOs, the CISOs, the IT leadership, really value and like CrowdStrike, that they could overlook, hey, look, that happens to err is human. And you know what? That's all par for the course. It's gonna have, but they've gotten better. And I think the spin that I heard time and time again from both CrowdStrike and other, CIOs was that they've learned from that mistake and we're not going to see it again.
Right.
And I get it. To err is human, right?
Absolutely.
I'm still shocked that it wasn't kind of fatal. And Solar Winds, for instance, that's another great one where that I'm actually shocked that SolarWinds is still in business. It was
I am
so
too.
egregious. And it's like, how do you still use, I get CrowdStrike because on CrowdStrikes, that was one isolated thing. They fixed it, and it's easy to be like, well, we've fixed our QA issue. Fine. But SolarWinds, come on. That
Yeah.
runs so deep. It's like, how do you even justify spending the money on it? How can you be like, well, they learned their lesson? That was brutal. I mean, it infiltrated the government on all levels, major corporations. How can you, how does one overcome that?
Right.
That one to me is a tough one. A lot harder than
Me
CrowdStrike.
too. And my question has always been, how long was it there before we knew?
Yeah.
And how much information does said team already have by the time we detect it?
Yep.
And that detection, I mean, we've seen it time and time again in the last few years in ransomware attacks.
Hmm.
For instance, MGM,
Yep.
getting hit by ransomware, and they end up not only paying a price for the ransomware, they actually pay actual money to ransomware teams, and that comes off their bottom line. And it, more so than the money that you lose, it impacts how you are perceived in the market. Someone like MGM might be able to absorb that. They're a casino. Somebody like us, we can't afford that. We
Yeah.
need to make sure that we are secure and that that doesn't happen to us. Because we want the trust of our members. We're given the opportunity to provide them with these benefits, and the moment they lose trust is the moment you lose membership.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's so spot on. And that it reminds me of a couple of things. One, the good guys, playing defense, we have to be on our game every single day. We have to bat 1,000 every day. The bad guys only have to get lucky once. And so it's this approach of we have to have multiple layers, to catch like, oh, we screwed up and didn't have this update, done on the firewall in time, whatever, right? This vulnerability, we didn't patch it fast enough. Okay, cool. But we had other layers in place. I think that's one aspect that helps to kind of buffer us in the, as security, at being responsible for those responsible for security for an organization. That helps buffer it. But I think that we are in a bit of, some might call it a game of cat and mouse. I think it's much more of an arms race with threat actors now. And I think it's so important that we continue. This is what's challenging. I think we have to continue to push on the AI insecurity front because if you don't, it's kind of like bringing a knife to a gunfight, right? At the end of the day, when you get shot, you can't be like, but I have the best knife. I even brought a sword. I brought a sword and it worked for us for 20, 30 years, kept us safe. I stood guard with my sword. Yeah, but then a bad guy walked up with a gun and shot you from, 30 yards away, and now you're dead. And
Yep.
so I think that's really, I think this is a really fascinating time. And I'm kind of curious, kind of what your take is, because I think in the insurance, the financial services industry, these places where there's a lot of money and information at stake, I think these are high targets. And I'm kind of curious, what's your take on that? What's your perspective? Am I way off in left field by being too far forward,
No,
or is there a balance? How's this work for you?
well, I think there is a balance to an extent, but I think it has to be driven in the future from something outside of just people.
Yeah,
To use your knife in a gunfight analogy, if you have 8 people with knives and one person with 7 rounds, 7 people are getting shot. One person's going to get through, so they win. But
yeah,
do you want to risk being one of those 7?
yeah,
You know, and people can't work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You would have to employ so many people
yeah,
that you're not being fiscally responsible
yeah,
anymore. But then on the other side, with AI, because of the many different models that are out there, you have to make sure and govern AI
yeah,
from the get. You need to know where that information is going, where it's coming back to, whether it's being used in LLM or not.
yeah,
And you have to be able to control that and view that architecture. And honestly, you have to be able to keep employees from misusing it, which has to be done at a policy level to some extent. But a lot of it's training as well. Most people don't understand that when you go to Chat GPT and you type something in, one, you may get the right response, you may not. Depends on its source. But two, is that information yours anymore?
yeah,
Or does it belong to OpenAI?
yeah,
Are they using it to provide their language model? And you don't want that to happen with personal health information
yeah,
or HIPAA or any of those things. Liberty is a high trust organization. So we have HiTrust, SOC 2, Type 2, SOC 1, Type 2. I mean, lots and lots and lots of different things that we have to abide by, even URAC.
yeah.
And, so we have an AR governing board where we have to ask all of those questions about any piece of AI that comes in. Is we see the potential for it, but we also see the potential risk.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think that is where leadership needs to be focused. And I think there's also a couple really important distinctions too that we're seeing with AI is that a lot of service, let's just say, um, legacy or traditional service products that are just slapping an LLM onto it. Let's just take like email gateway, and you slap this LLM onto it. That is great for let's say VC investors. They're like, yay, it's AI powered now. Great. The street loves that. That's fantastic. It's got all the great new hype, jargon and hype words, and everybody loves AI. I'll throw money at that because you might be the winner. But I think the reality is that opens right now, an LLM opens up so many more vulnerabilities in terms of prompt injection and data loss, all kinds of things. That's ridiculous. Then you see, but you have to use AI intelligently. And I think when it comes to security, we've seen this for a long time, but people aren't really catching on until now. And now is really the time. So you look at products like Darktrace, for instance, where they use machine learning instead of an LLM. The proper application of machine learning in, let's go back to that email gateway. I think this is where we kind of see how the future plays out because
Yeah.
through products like Darktrace and Abnormal, others like that, where they're using AI in kind of the right way, you can see that, oh, this is great. This is what you'd want. You want it to be able to look at that, understand what that email is, and understand what the bad guys were doing, and then be able to stop it, right? Instead of creating these filters that traditional gateways do. And it's like the bad guys always find ways around it. That's their job and they're good at it. And now there's billions and billions of dollars at play. And so they're really good at finding the way around. So I think the future, I'm really excited about seeing where things like dark trace go, because not only is it on the email side, but the network and endpoint and OT, these things are really cool. And to see AI doing its thing in this safe, contained way, I think those are the products that you kind of pave the way for the future and help us fight that. And I look forward to the day where it advances to the point where, just like self-driving cars, you're crazy to be driving a car because the self-driving is so much better. We're not there yet, but it's so much, even right now, the self-driving is so much better than people, but it's not 100%. So you still have to watch it. It's still really great. And I think that's where we are with AI in security. These products give us that strategic and tactical advantage over the enemy. But we're in that space where, as a group, there's so much governance and understanding, and you got to dive in and look at it like you were saying. And I think that's the key for where we stand right now in early 2026. It'll be interesting to see where we stand at the end of 2026 and in the
Yeah.
beginning of 2027. But anyway, I think that's where we are, and I'm kind of curious what your take on that is.
Yeah, mine's actually very similar. Whether you take it at security or even just in business as usual, outside of security, I think the same holds true.
Yes.
The governance has to be there, the understanding has to be there.
Yes.
Like we can go into Copilot right now
Yeah.
and say, give me Python's code to build this LLM, and it'll give you 80% of it. But is it accurate?
Yeah.
Are you verifying it? Do you know where that code came from? To go back to SolarWinds, do we want some code injected in there that's going to allow a back door into every agency in the world? No. So we have to take the time. We have to trust but verify.
Yeah.
We have to take the time to look and see what it's doing. Whether it's security, where we've got AI versus AI, from the bad guys to the good guys, or do we take a look and know what that AI is really doing for us, where it's really going, and how it's really working, and what it's really doing?
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting because, going back to your MGM example, right, where there you've got a company that security is obviously really important to them. They take it seriously. They spend the money on it, and yet your the social engineering was the downfall of them,
Mm-hmm.
or I should say the way in. It didn't take MGM down. It was the bad guys' way in,
Yep.
and I think this is one of the, now AI is getting to the point where it can be that additional layer. And when it sees things like, hey, wait a sec, this brand new account, just open up and it's this new computer, and now they're suddenly moving quickly across the network. I'm going to stop this because that's not normal, first day on the job for this admin kind of maneuver.
Right.
So I'm stopping this. And I think that gives us that second layer, an additional layer of backup, because you can't take humans out of the equation. We are the weak link.
Right.
It's always going to be easier to social engineer your way in than to find some novel vulnerability. That's just the reality. So until we are no longer, and at the point where we're no longer working, who cares, right?
Yeah.
But as long as we're working, social engineering is going to be a thing, and I think that's where AI can kind of be that second, layer of backup. We're there in parts, in, like I said, in things like dark trace, but it'll be really interesting what the future brings if we're not 2 years from AGI and robots taking over and everything. But yeah, hopefully it's much, much longer than that,
Yeah.
and we'll be working for decades, and AI will be a tool, and things will get cooler and faster and better. But it'll be really fun and exciting. I think we're living in the most exciting time ever, where we get to see these things play out. And on the IT and security side, seeing those, how it plays out and implementing that, I think this is just the most exciting thing, kind of. But it's always great to talk to people like you and see, well, where you're at, what you're doing. How do you balance the company's need for that, for for safeguarding the data and the finances, and yet how do you implement those new technologies while im, im, I guess employing the right governance and oversight to be like, yep, we're going to do this responsibly, but we got to do it fast enough to stay above in ahead of the bad guys. If we
Yeah.
just sit back with our swords, it's going to be a problem. So this is a fun time, and not like any like none of us had anything else to do, right? But now we've
Right.
got to keep up with all of that and figure out how to implement it while doing everything else that we've got to do during the day to to kind of keep the lights on and keep everything moving.
Well, I've always said that securing the person is by
Mm,
far harder than securing the system.
yes.
And it always will be. You were spot on. AI doesn't have feelings. AI can't be tricked the same way that a human can.
That's right.
If they have a baby screaming in the background, you're probably more likely to help the poor person that's calling because you can. AI doesn't do that.
Yeah.
AI has no feelings. AI can run 24 hours a day and not get tired. So there's a lot for AI. There really is. But there is a fine line between convenience and security.
Yes.
Security is always going to err on the side of security. Everybody else is always going to err on the side of convenience.
Yeah.
So it's finding that balance there so that business can do what they need to do so you can enable that through IT.
Yeah.
Through instead of being that hindrance that we were talking about earlier, we can be helpful. We can say we've got something in place. Yes, it's a little bit, but here's what it does for you.
Yeah.
We got to look at the price versus the cost.
Yeah.
The price of this product is $100, but if I have to replace it every 2 years, it becomes 300 in 3 years. It becomes another 200, or I can spend 150 now and never have to replace it. Well, the cost is 150 versus 300. So I'm actually better off making the right decision from the get go. So take a little bit of time, govern properly, and look through the situation. Besides just the immediate dollars, you've got to look to the future and see what else you can do to make sure that you're ensuring the future of the company.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. And if you look back, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but since IT was the it was no to everything. Oh, can I do this? No,
Yeah.
because well, for security and no. And then as we've advanced and developed, and now I think the technology has advanced to the point where we now get to say yes a whole lot more. We get to focus on how can IT, how can we help drive business forward and achieve the business goals versus no, look, you do that and it's going to shut everything down. Like we can't do that, and just being scared of everything and having to say no because those things haven't been vetted. We can't do it. And now there's so much more. We have so much more ability now, and I think this is such an exciting time to be in IT for that reason. Like,
Mhm.
yes, it's kind of drinking from the fire hose because there's so much so fast. But while that's true of the new things popping up, everybody, writes some vibe codes, some new AI product. Cool, that's all well and good. And I think those things have huge value in that it moves the industry forward. Like some kid will discover the new idea. They'll vibe code and it'll be like, oh, that's awesome. And then it will grow from there. And nobody knows what that'll be. And there'll be a bunch of those. Cool. But what makes it, I think, easier for us as leaders in the field is that you do have things like the Gartner's Magic Quadrant. So that for the leaders, that to be able to say, okay, here are the leading products, and here's how we don't have to choose from 10,000 products. We have to choose from a handful and go through, and it's a lot easier to filter out. So on the surface, it looks like it's drinking from the fire hose to even attempt to like, well, where do you start? I mean, even on LLMs, you've got like 5 or 6 big ones to choose from if you're gonna and how you implement those. But then when you start getting into security products, once again, you're really kind of down to a handful, and then it really comes down to one or two that will actually fit.
Right.
So it seems like a lot on the surface, but I think it comes down to just a couple to really evaluate, which I think is super fun and exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I've always thought, knowledge does not cause people to do things wrong.
Right. Yes.
Knowledge is important for a reason. It may be a lot of it, but the more of it you have, the more you know. And to quote GI Joe from the '80s, knowing's
Yes.
half the battle, right?
That's right. That's fantastic. I love that quote, and it doesn't get used nearly often enough.
It
So
really does.
thank you for that one. That's
Yeah,
great. A great blast from the past. Um, well, you know what? Speaking of that, I really love kind of getting into people's stories and hearing, oh, just call them their origin stories, how
yeah,
you got, what got you into IT and how did you go from where you started to where you are today? And because I don't think we've had two people on now we've had probably 200 guests on and or more than that now. And I don't think any two have had the same path
right.
into IT. So kind of curious, what was yours?
Yeah, so a wealthy scoundrel seduced me, into IT. Um, my story goes way back. So my first job in IT, just to age myself here, I was running RG6 with BNC connectors and a token ring because I was small
Nice.
enough to fit in the ceiling. So
Nice.
my job was to tie the wrench to it, throw it, go get it, throw it, go get it, and
Nice.
then drop it down, terminate with some BNC connectors and pop it on the back. Now, the great thing about it was you knew where it was broken. Because
Yeah.
if you had six computers and three of them didn't work, number three was your problem. And you
That's
go
right.
that. So that part was great where it was easy,
Yeah.
but now it's morphed into such a thing. So I've been in IT for almost 30 years at this point.
Nice.
I started in the early '90s actually, and I actually had my own business for a while, and
Nice.
it was Geek Incorporated. And
Very
as
nice. Good.
another blast from the past, Kids Incorporated from back
Yep.
in the day. So we had the
Uh-huh.
song just like them.
Nice.
It was a good business for quite some time. And then, in the bubble burst in 2008, contract is the first thing to go and,
Yep.
took a hit. So I went back to the private industry. But I did 10 years in Medicaid, working for the government in
Okay.
Medicaid for the state of Oklahoma, and learned quite a bit there. And then I moved into private industry again, um, in the same space. So in the Medicaid space, the state of Oklahoma released an RFP, which is a request for proposal,
Hmm.
to outsource or to have managed care. And so the state is still the overall payer, but then they kind of subcontract uh, the work, the
Yeah.
risk, to these various companies. And I went to work for one of the companies that won that bid, which is Liberty. And now I get to serve the same people that I was for 10 years, just in a little bit different capacity. I've been all over IT.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a running joke here at Liberty. In my first year, so in 12 months, I had 11 different titles and 10 different bosses. So I was all over the place. Everything from data quality management to information security officer to director of IT to director of ITSM, operational excellence, you name it. And I've done it in IT. And I would recommend for anybody that's coming up that wants to get into the field, whether it be security or whether it be infrastructure, whether it be networking, whatever it is, get that foundation there. Build the foundation, pay your dues and on the desktop support team and a service desk, things like that to kind of learn how that end of it works. As I feel like the most important thing from an IT perspective anymore is that we are a non-revenue producing department, but no one can produce revenue without us.
Exactly.
So we have to co-create value with the business by offering IT as a service, not just a bunch of hardware sitting in some closet somewhere.
That's great. No, that's beautiful. Let me ask you, what advice would you give to somebody looking to get into IT? I mean, I think now I there's probably a lot of people kind of second guessing should I learn to program, and people second guessing, well, IT is, going to be, a lot of these jobs will go away because of AI. Agree, disagree, but what would your advice be if somebody's like, well, I really like IT, I'd like to get into it. What should their perspective be, and how do you think they should go about that?
Yeah, so I agree and disagree. IT, AI is going to be the death of us all, but at the same time, it's going to be the lifeblood.
Yeah.
Without it, we're like we said earlier, you're trying to hire 1,000 people to do the work that you could do with 3, and vice versa. But if I was going to give advice to somebody, I would tell them to look beyond their help desk years, look beyond the service desk. What is it that you really are passionate about, that you really want to do in the long run? Because the paths are different, as you'll know from a security path. If I come in and say I have a CISSP, or I come in and I say I've got Security Plus, pretty big difference.
Yeah.
And not knowing when you start where you need to go, talk to somebody that's been there.
Yeah.
Talk to your CISO, or talk to a CISO, and understand, like, hey, if you really want to be in security, here's what you need to learn. Here's the path you need to take. It may all start at the same place at the service desk level, but the path from there on branches out in so many different ways.
Yeah.
You can go get a CCNA, CCNP, CISSP, CIE, all those from Cisco, and they're great certs, but they're not going to necessarily get you where you want to be if you want to develop. You need to understand an SDLC. You need to ITSQB, very, very specific things in specific fields. I often equate IT to like being a doctor. Everybody knows you've got a general family medicine doctor, and then you've got all these specialties. Well, IT is the same way. And, help desk is kind of your general physician. When you come in and you talk to the service desk or to your desktop support, they kind of see a little bit of everything. They kind of get you going. But if it's real difficult, they may send you they may give you a referral to a different department. And kind of understanding that flow. Like, yes, you can have a GI do your brain surgery, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
And it's the same for IT. Yes, a developer might be able to help you with something, but a developer and an infrastructure guy are 2 totally different ways of thinking about things. And, you just can't let it all morph together. And then security's got to look at all of it from all different scenarios. It's security and service management are real similar in that way.
Yeah.
You have to be able to take that high level 1,000-yard view and see everything in order to not miss anything.
Yeah. No, fantastic advice. Bryan, I appreciate you coming on today. I think you've really kind of laid it out there for anybody looking to get into IT. You give them some really great stuff. Thanks for coming on and sharing with us. But before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about Liberty and more about you?
Absolutely. You can go to www.libertydentalplan.com. And then, of course, you can find me on LinkedIn. My last name is Younger, Bryan Younger. I don't do social media for the reasons you were talking about earlier, outside of LinkedIn, but I'm always there, and I'm happy to help. If any of you have IT questions, feel free to email me, byounger@libertydentalplan.com. I will take the time to answer them.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Bryan, and until next time.
Matt, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.